A very good evening to all of you out there. On behalf of EduSoft, I, David Singh, welcome you all once again in this session. This is the second episode of Education Technology series. We have already met, many of us have already met earlier, a fortnight before, talking about basics of artificial intelligence. And now this is the second episode, second session. And actual learning regarding artificial intelligence is going to begin from this session onwards, because the first session was mostly focused on the why of AI, why artificial intelligence as a course in schools, and what schools should keep in mind while conducting that course, what all is there in the course, and all those things were mostly the prime focus. The purpose of this series is twofold. Number one, to keep giving you the basic knowledge of the topics as they come. Number two, help you suggesting certain activities or certain ways in which you can make those topics interesting in the classroom, presenting those topics in the form of some activity or some experiment or some kind of game, whichever possibility is there, we will research and we will share with you. Coming to today's focus, today we will be talking more about certain things in terms of practical and activities. I'll try to give you the insight on certain very common topics on AI. And as we move further, by the end of this session, you will take away, of course, certain learning which will help you in the classroom. So in supervised learning, as we know, machine knows what is the purpose of the data processing, what outcome the machine is supposed to give. In unsupervised learning, that all is absent. The data is not described to the machine, and the expected outcome of the analytics is also not told to the machine, and everything is left on the machine to be on its own to figure out all about the data which is fed. That's why it is called unsupervised learning. The technique is called clustering. In supervised learning, the techniques which we follow are classification and regression. Then here I have added, this was not there in the last session because we are talking about very basics. The third kind of machine learning is reinforced learning. Reinforced learning is the process where machine is trained into doing something, into performing some task. And after the training, machine is ready to process the actual data. And that training actually happens on the basis of feedback mechanism. Some task is given to the machine is supposed to do it. If machine is moving into a correct direction, if machine is following the correct course of logic, it's well and good. If it is not, then it is marked as a penalty, then it is marked as wrong. So on the basis of the reward earned, on the basis of the punishment given, the machine finally figures out what is right and what is wrong, and accordingly it performs. So that is reinforced learning, which focuses on trial and error method. Mostly, artificial neural network technique is used in reinforced learning. Let's move into the details of it. Let's go into looking for what supervised learning actually is, the classification technique. Now, when we try to understand classification, it comes from the real life. We do it in our daily life also. Depending on certain property, we try to put the things into groups. The very common example is the clothes, the garments. We can categorize various garments into various groups, depending on the property, say the color, the size, and uh, the genders. Other properties could be grouping the people on the basis of age, grouping the students on the basis of their performance, the employees on the basis of their salary. So this is basically what classification means, and it is actually the technique of supervised learning. Then we come to the real life classification applications. If we are able to classify certain things on the basis of their properties, what all could be achieved in real life. Because of the classification techniques, we can predict the behaviors of various people, various customer on the basis of the data which is given, whether the customer will be buying this particular product or not, this customer will subscribe for this movie or not, whether this particular cell in the body is carcinogenic, it is going to cause cancer or not, whether given the condition, given a set of values for a patient, we can predict whether this patient could be hospitalized, he should be hospitalized or not. So basically, yes, no kind of answers. Or if we try to classify them into more than two classes, yes and no are two classes. There could be more than two classes also. That is called multiple classification. So this can be done in real life, predicting the performance of the students, uh, categorizing the emails, whether they are spam or not, recognizing the speech, classifying various documents depending on their genre, depending on their content. For example, classifying the news as fake news or real news, or grouping together similar kind of articles and listing them to the customer when he searches for the articles, recognizing a particular face out of many. So these are certain applications which can be achieved, which can be applied in the field by using the technique classification. So let us see how classification actually works conceptually. I am showing you by taking one example, we will see and understand the concept of classification in real life. Let's take a very small example. In real life, the example is not this is small. The example will be uh, possibly thousands or millions of records. As you see here, this is actually the movie subscribers data set, and it is showing of which age and of which gender the people have viewed what kind of movie in past days. Thriller, romance, and war are the three genres which are considered here. In real life, there could be 20 types or 100 types. The age is given there. This is the actual data. So one thing is that whatever data you collect for the AI algorithm, that data may not be actually useful for the algorithm. So whatever data you get, you have to make that data suitable for the algorithm. That is called data cleaning, or you can say feature extraction. Various technical terms are there for it. So this data has to be cleaned. This data has to be made suitable for the algorithm, as we discussed and learned in previous session also, that computers only understand, only deal with numbers, and here we have text, male, thriller. So these two have to be translated into numbers. That is one thing. So let us assume that the genres romance, thriller, and war, these are the three classes in which we are going to classify. So we have given them the numbers 1, 2, and 3. See how the data has been normalized. The genre is numeric now, gender female 1, male 0. That also has been translated into the data set. So data set is more suitable for machine learning now, for the use of machine now. One more thing you have to look into this, you have to compare the values and see there should not be much difference in the units or in the scale of the values. Like if you see gender and genre are in tens, in units rather, 1, 2, and 3, 0, 1, 2, 3 range, but age is pretty higher. Age is, actual age is given here, which is in tens. So this is a big difference between the two values if we see. And if you try to make a graph, or if you try to plot these values on a graph, these values will fall apart. So graph has to be very large, or you have to do a lot of scaling. You better reconsider the data and apply some recleaning technique. So what we do is, here I have divided the age by 10. So now data is balanced. Age is in like 3.4, 1.9, 4.0, as you see, and gender and genre are already taken care of. So data set is more optimized now. So this is what I was talking about. Before dumping the data directly to the AI algorithm, First of all, we have to explore the data. What I did just now is called exploration. So we explore the data to just see whether the data is suitable, to clean the data. In real life data, there could be a possibility where there could be no values, missing values, that is called. So somehow I have to take care of missing values. Some very common techniques are you try to calculate the missing values from the existing data if possible, or you remove the records which are of missing values if records are less than 10% of the actual data set, or you have to arrange for the missing values from by collecting the data again. So somehow you have to take care of the missing values, and your data should look like this. Now, given this data set, we have to predict. Here, classification technique is going to predict for a newcomer, for a new subscriber who is of age 30 and female. We have to figure whether she would be interested in watching the next movie of genre romance, thriller, or war. So here you see there are three classes in which we have to try to put this new record, this new case or observation. As I told you, classification can give answers in yes and no also, and there could be more possibilities. Here there are three possibilities: romance, thriller, or war. So let us see how do we do that. So the new observation which was given, we have also optimized it. The age is turned down into 3, and the female value is translated to 1. So we have to put 3 and 1, this set, into either romance, thriller, or war. Let's see. What we do is we take the difference of age and gender from each of the records. If you pick up the first record age is 3.4, gender is 0, and genre is 2, that is thriller. So here what we do is, with our new value is 3 and 1. So we subtract from the first record values this new value. Age, first record 3.4 minus new case 3. We get 0.40. Similarly, for gender, we deduct gender from gender. 0 is the first record, 0 minus 1. We take the absolute value. If the value is negative, we make it absolute, that is 1. Then we take the square of these values. Now this difference is called distance. If you try to plot these figures on the graph, graphically they would be a distance apart. That is this distance, actually the distance between the data values if you plot them on a graph. So this difference is actually called distance. So we square the distance. The distance of age and gender is squared to 0.16 and 1. And then we simply take the sum of all the squares. That gives us 1.16 here. This process or formula is called Euclidean distance. So we have used Euclidean formula, which is the most popular and mostly used formula in most of the cases, 90% cases. So we have the sum of the squares of the distances between the corresponding data values. And here in our case, it is 1.16. And we make a note of that distance. Now we perform the same process with the second record, third record, fourth, and so on. So we calculate the Euclidean distance of all the values in the data set with the actual data value, which needs to be classified. Once we finish this process, this is what we get. All the distances are here. So as you see here, the age, gender, and genre is there, and distance is calculated by applying the same formula. So the formula is given here for you. The same Euclidean approach is given. The value which is the new value of age, that is in A18, and the older value is the actual record value is A2. So this is how the distance has been calculated for the first record, and here I show the distance of all the records as shown here. Now, once all the distance is calculated, what you do, you try to find out the nearest distances or the least distances. Here, what I have done is I have sorted all the data on the basis of distance calculated. And as you see, the top three cases here, I am considering three cases. The three nearest points with the value to be predicted are 0.36, 0.36, 0.64. These are the nearest points to our new value. So let us consider the genre. In these three cases, the genre is 1, 2, 1. The occurrence of 1 is highest and 1 is romance. So we can predict that this lady of 30 years is more likely to watch a romance movie which is going to release next. So what our website will do, that website will start sending all the trailers related with romance movies to this lady's social media account, and a targeted focused marketing, digital marketing will begin. So this is one small example where what you do is you calculate the distance between the existing points in the data sets and the new point which needs to be classified. You take the square of those distances, and then you take the nearest 3 or 4 or 5 distances, and then you try to predict on the basis of that. So here what we have done is, this approach is called K nearest neighbor algorithm. This is the algorithm, prediction algorithm, which is the most popular and most effective algorithm. It is called K nearest neighbor. K stands for the number of points you consider. Here I have considered 3 points. As you see in the sorted data, I have considered the 3 nearest distances, 3 least distances. So here my K is 3. Now, how do we decide this number of neighbors? Why not? Why don't we decide 5 or 7 or 10 or 20 or just 2? That is achieved by trial and error. So what you do is you try changing the value of K. Here I have taken 3 cases to consider for K. If we take 5, which are the 5 nearest, in 5 also you see 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. The occurrence of 1 is higher. So even if we take 5 nearest neighbors in distance, still the prediction is romance. What about 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In 7, it is difficult to predict because romance and thriller are contenders. They are equally present. And war genre is also coming in 7 nearest distances. So 7 is not the appropriate value. The most stable value here seems to be 3. So this is a small glimpse about classification, one of the supervised learning technique. Here you see that algorithm already knew what is the data about. Gender, the data was labeled. The data was clearly labeled gender and the age and the genre, and algorithm already knew what outcome it is supposed to give. So that's why this classification technique is mostly used for supervised learning. Here the programmer is telling the algorithm what all data is about and what output is expected. Now, when we come to the classroom, in classroom, you cannot show this to children. You cannot show this directly to children. You cannot even do this in Excel. For that, they should know Excel. They will be wondering what the teacher has done. This is so mind-boggling for them. So try to convert this demonstration into an activity. So what you can do, instead of 20 records, you get 5 or 10 students. You get at least 10 students. Let them participate in the classroom. Let them be the real participants, the real data sets. You have the age of the student, and you have the gender of the student. And with this activity, the real activity, and you pick up one student for whom we are going to predict whether this student is going to watch which movie. So this way, this entire, whatever I have shown you on the slide and whatever I showed you on Excel sheet, this all will be shared with you later on. What you can do is you convert it into a real activity in the classroom, and entire one period, 40 minutes, can be utilized for this activity. And after the activity, let other students who are watching this activity in the classroom, let them do the paperwork. assign the paperwork leadership to the brightest student in the classroom. And after the paperwork, let that student come over and then you debrief. Then you ask what is the result, what is the prediction, and then you debrief. To make the activity more interesting, what you can ask the new student for whom you have to do the prediction. You ask that student to secretly write his or her favorite genre on a paper and give it to the teacher. And after the prediction, you can just check out whether your prediction was wrong or right. In case the prediction is not correct, what you can do, you can repeat this activity 2-3 times and you compare the repetitions. What is the maximum occurrence? So this way, you can convert this entire thing into an activity in the classroom, and you can tell the students that, look, students, here, what you were doing is you were functioning like an algorithm of a machine, and this was a supervised learning. You were already told what all values are about and what outcome is expected. So this way they can easily enjoy that thing into the classroom. And then you can give them an assignment. Okay, you go and collect this kind of data and apply this logic, do some paperwork, a mini project is there, and come up with your predictions. You can do this with your friends, with your relatives. You can do it as an activity at your home and let them enjoy that. So this way you can involve them into a real activity instead of paperwork shown on the slide or in Excel sheet. In higher classes, class 9th and 10th, of course, you can use Excel. You can show this Excel sheet. You can prepare a template of this Excel sheet and give it to the students in the lab and ask them to work out themselves. You can give them a real lab activity to perform K nearest neighbor algorithm in the classroom. This can be done in class 9th and 10th. In 10th, it is the part of the curriculum. So they will, of course, do it. In lower classes, you can perform this as an activity. So this is one small glimpse of an example of classification technique. Moving further, let us see clustering. Clustering is another interesting aspect of artificial intelligence. So here we now move on to the clustering technique. Clustering is basically used for unsupervised learning. And unsupervised learning, as I told you, it does not tell the algorithm what all is data about, and it does not tell the algorithm what expected output is there. But first of all, how clustering is different from classification. In classification, we try to group on the basis of a given property, gender, age, income, etc. Clustering is actually on the basis of similar kind of values. So what happens is, in the data values in the data set, it is the machine tries to figure out which values are similar and tries to group them on the basis of similarity. That's the basic difference between classification and clustering. So as we see, grouping the data on the basis of similarity, machine is not told what the data is about and what is the required output. And where does it help? It also helps in identifying fake news, spam identification, segmenting the customers, buyers, identifying similar locations for business, clustering books, movies, people, and events, etc. So let us first understand how this clustering actually works. If a set of values is given to a machine and it is not told about the values, the description, and it is not told what is the expected output, then what does the machine do with it and how does it do it? Let us see one approach, one very basic approach. If you see the green cells over there, it is a set of certain numbers. Random numbers are there. And out of these numbers, we have to create two clusters. We have to group these numbers into two separate groups. Let us say, how do we do that? First of all, we randomly take an average value. I have just randomly taken two values, 6 and 25. Now, question is where this 6 and 25 have come from? Answer is it is randomly taken within the range of these values. 6 and 25 is there. Now, let us pick up 6 and then try to figure out which numbers are with the least difference with 6. and put them into a separate group. If you see 8, 15, 3, and 2 are nearer to 6. And if you see 29, 38, and 40, 18, 37, these numbers are actually nearest to 25. They are farther from 6, nearest to 25. So they are put into a separate group. So now we have, on the basis of random two values 6, 25, we have calculated the distance between 6 and other values. The nearest values are taken in a separate group and other values are taken into the other group. You can see the groups as red color, light red color, and yellow color. That is the first pass. That is the first execution. Now what we do further is, now we focus on these two groups. Now we do not take random values. We take the exact average. If you see the first set, 8, 8, 15, 3, and 2, we take the average of these and their average is 7. Similarly, we take the average of all the values in second group, that gives us 29. And then we perform the same task again with all the values. Now we calculate the distance, the difference between the numbers which are nearest to 7 and the numbers which are nearest to 29. And we do it on all the data values once again. And then we get these two groups now. This is slightly different from the previous groups. Now the first group has 8, 8, 15, 3, 2, and 16 also. The 16 which was in other group now has come into this group. This is the second execution. Let us see how far this execution goes and where do we stop and how. Again, we did the same thing. First group's average we have calculated 9, that is. Second group's average is 30. And we perform with these two averages 9 and 30. Again, we calculate the differences with all the values in the data set. The values which are nearest to 9 and the values which are nearest to 30. Again, the groups have changed. The first group has 8, 19, 8, 15, 3, 2, 18, 16. Let us move further. Now we take the average of these two again. We do the same thing again. We get the average 11 and 32. And we perform the same technique again. The fourth execution gives us another set. Then again, we take the average that comes 11 and 32 of the two clusters. Again, we do the same thing. We see which are the values nearest to 11 and which are the values nearest to 32. And in fourth execution, we get the clusters like this. We take the average again. This comes to 12 and 34. We redo the same thing fifth time and we get the cluster like this now. We take the average again 13 and 35 and we get the clusters like this. Now here we stop because now clusters are not changing. If you take the average, it will always come 13 and 35 and clusters will not modify. This is where you stop. So this is called K-means clustering technique, which is performed in unsupervised learning. Here, the grouping is done by the machine through some logic, and there is no label. These values could be age, these values could be the location of the shops, these values could be the income index of certain people. We don't know what these values are about. We don't know after clustering what is to be done with these values. The clusters are just made. So this is what machine does with this algorithm if it is given certain values. So this is another idea which you can bring into the classroom, and you can, around this, you can think of many ideas, not just one. Or you can create a demo in Excel, like I showed you earlier, and then that demo can be used to show to the grown-up higher class students. Class 9th and 10th, with them you can bring in Excel also in lab. But for small children, you have to do away only with activity. I'll show you another quick example on clustering. So this screen is in front of you. Before understanding what is happening here, let me explain you what actually it is about. You see the orange colored bold cells. 2, 10, 2, 5, certain values are there. Now these values have to be clustered into 3 clusters. We are going to divide them into, we are going to put them into 3 clusters. What I have done is I have arranged these values into an Excel sheet format. You see the green cells. Green cells are all the values 2, 2, 2, the first coordinate. And the pink cell is the second coordinate. I hope you can figure out 2, 10, 2, 5, 8, 4, 5, 8, 7, 5, 6, 4, 1, 2, 4, 9. These are columns P and Q. And then I have taken 3 random values. I have taken 3 random values. See here. I have taken the coordinates 2, 10, 5, 8, and 1, 2 out of this data set. I have taken 2, 10, 5, 8, and 1, 2. Just randomly I have picked up. And just to show you, I have put them here at the top. Now the distance is being calculated. Distance between 210 and 210. It will obviously be 0. The distance will be 0. If you subtract 2 from 2, it will give you 0. 10 from 10, 0. If you sum them together, it will give you 0. Again, the Euclidean distance I am talking about. Similarly, if I take 5 here and 2 here, 5 minus 2, 3, then 8 minus 10 will give me 2. Minus 2 is the absolute value of minus 2. So 3 and 2, we add these differences. That gives me 5. I take the third set. 1 minus 2 gives me 1. 2 minus 10 gives me 8. 8 and 1 gives me 9. So this is the distance between the first coordinate and the coordinates which I have taken randomly out of it. And now from these 3 distances, which one is the least? This yellow one. The yellow colored cell is the least distance. So I put this first value, 210. I put this in cluster 1. I call it cluster 1. See this gray column? This gray column is showing you the cluster in which the values, the coordinates are going to be put. So again, I have calculated the distance. I have picked up the second value, 2, 5. 2, 5, the distance is taken out of 210. The distance is taken out of 5, 8. The distance is taken out of 1, 2. And here it is, 5, 6, 4. Euclidean distance 5, 6, 4. Least value is 4. Nearest distance is 4. So I'm putting it into cluster 3. See at the top, 1, 2, 3 clusters. I have given the names to the clusters, cluster 1, 2, and 3. So this goes into cluster 3. Similarly, in third, fourth, fifth, and sixth case, they all go to cluster 2. They are the least values. Second last goes to cluster 3. And last one is also going to cluster 2. So the first cluster is made. The first set of clusters is made. Here I have arranged them. In cluster 1, if you see, only one value, 210, is falling. 210 goes to cluster 1. Many values are going to cluster 2. 8, 4, 5, 8, 7, 5, 6, 4, 4, 9. And just 2 values fall into cluster 3. Once this first clustering is done, this clustering is done on the basis of random values which I have taken. I take the average of these. See the averages? 8, 5, 7, 6, 4. The average is 6. Here the average is 6. So I have taken the averages. Averages are giving me new coordinates, 210, 6, 6, 1.5, 3.5. Now with these averages, I apply the same thing once again. With these averages, I do the same thing once again. See, this 210, I have brought it here, 2, 10. This 6, 6, I have taken here, 6, 6. 1.5, 3.5 is here. Same distance is calculated again. Least values are picked out. If it is the first value, this is going to be in the first cluster. If it is going to the second value, second cluster, and so on.
I keep repeating this process until the clusters stop changing. After several repetitions, this is the final output. In cluster 1, values 2, 10, 5, 8, and 4, 9 are going. In 2, the values 8, 4, 7, 5, and 6, 4 are going. In third cluster, 2, 5, and 1, 2 are falling. So these values could be anything. It could be age, gender, some income index, and so on. So did you see how it was different from classification? In one example of clustering, which we took for understanding the concept, there was a single set of values. In the second example, we saw two sets. There was a coordinate set, which we tried to clusterize, and we found three clusters. We clustered the values into three buckets. So this is how clustering algorithm works. That is k-means cluster algorithm, which is most popular and most powerful in industry and used by many people. In many scenarios, it is being used. So as I said in the beginning, the purpose of this this series is to take you through the fundamentals of artificial intelligence through plain and simple examples, which you can easily portray in the classroom, which you yourself are confident in conducting in the classroom. It's not that the example is so complicated that you get lost during explanation. That should not happen in the classroom. So go very plain and simple, go with a few values. Do not take very few values, because then answer would be obvious. So go for a moderate set of number of values with which you can perform classification and with which you can perform clustering. And through some activity, think of some example like bucketing the student into various houses or categorizing certain things into three colors. Clustering can be done. You can give an example where a small child is given to sort the clothes. There is a huge stack of clothes where all sort of garments are there: t-shirt, jeans, trousers, coat, socks, all sort mixes there, and that child is asked to sort them. Now what that child will do, that child will pick up every garment and will try to figure it resembles which other garment. And slowly, after some time, that child will be able to figure out that, okay, these are the socks, these are the jeans, these are the t-shirts, these are the shirts with long sleeves. And after some time, he would be able to figure out this particular garment will go into which cluster. So what that child is doing, that child is going through an unsupervised learning. That child is figuring out what the garment is about and what are the properties of garment, on what basis the garment has to be categorized. This all the child is deciding on by his own experience. And that is what the unsupervised learning is. Now, if you ask the same child to find out all the clothes which are red colored, now that is supervised learning. And if you tell the child, okay, not all the clothes, but give me out the red colored t-shirts. Now there are two labels: the type of the cloth, the type of the garment, and the color. So you have given two labels to the student, to the algorithm. That is supervised learning. That is, you are trying to classify on the basis of color and type of the garment, maybe the size of the garment. So this is the basic difference between classification and clustering. So I hope you are able to figure that these two, the difference between the two, and you can easily portray this into the classroom also when you go for explaining these things. And in classroom, it's not necessary that you do these activities when you are actually teaching these topics. These topics might be coming in chapter 4 or 5 or 10, who knows. You can create similar many activities around these, and you can conduct these activities from day one. You can tell them this is a demonstration of artificial intelligence. You don't tell them classification or clustering from day one. In higher classes or in further chapters, when you come down to a specific topic, classification, clustering, unsupervised, supervised, there you recall the same activity, there you recall the same example you played with the students, and then students will be able to connect, they will be able to relate the concept, and it will be easier for you to explain the concept Do not try to explain do not wait for explanation till that topic comes. Do it in the beginning through activity. And don't tell them that this is classification or clustering. When the topic comes, then you reveal that. So they will quickly understand that. So this is how you go about in your classroom teaching. So in the next session, what we will do is we will go for a quick revision, some more examples on classification and clustering. And then we will move on to artificial neural network, which is more interesting a topic. Just to give you a little glimpse, artificial neural networks are actually used where algorithm has to be trained into something. And artificial neural networks actually are mapped on the functioning of the mind, the brain. How do we learn? We take the inputs in the form of stimuli, and then it goes into through our sensory organs. The signals go into something called neurons, which are the basic functional units of human brain. And then in those neurons, the information is coded, and then information is transferred across the neurons through the connections called axons. And that is a chemical reaction also. All the axons are not connected like our electrical wires. Between two axons, a chemical reaction occurs, and through that chemical reaction, the electricity gets transferred, the charge gets transferred to the next neuron. And this entire network of billions of neurons makes us think, makes us learn, retain the experience, and apply the learning. On the similar fashion, neural networks are created. They are simulating human brain, where a lot of data is fed into the neural network, and with constant exposure to the data, the neural network learns out of that data and tries to do predictions which are more accurate. So how this works, how this actually functions, we'll see in the next session. This session comes to an end here. So I have put the email address in the chat. It is david.singh@eduitspl.com. And you can mail us regarding your queries or any examples you need or anything. So this is where we come to an end of this session. Thank you for your patience. And I really appreciate your grit and your patience to go through this session. So all my dear guests, thank you for being with me this evening. Wishing you all the very best. Thank you once again. I take your leave.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.